Hey, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ podcast. On this episode, I'm sitting down with Kevin Wesley of Wesley Motorsports, and we are talking about Pikes Peak, the upcoming race in Colorado that takes you to an elevation of 14,115 feet, has, I believe, 156 turns, along with 5 or 6 that will kill you. And I know this because Kevin made a video about it that I recently watched, and I kind of giggled about it. So, Kevin, how you doing, man? What's been happening? How's the prep going?
Well, as usual, prep is absolutely last minute. We accomplished my last Herculean task yesterday where the wrap was signed off on. So the car is going to actually be going in to get wrapped tomorrow, and everything that needed to get done for the car better be done by now.
Oh, better be. Okay. So let's start off with the car. What are you running this year?
So we're running a 2021 Charger Hellcat, or let me rephrase that, a 2021 Hellcat Charger Redeye wide body. That is, I believe, the technical name.
Right. Okay. Because as long as it's not that long and difficult to remember, that's fine.
Yes.
So this car, stock specs, right? I mean, if you bought one from a dealership, 797 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, whereabouts, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's the same car. It's the same car we actually took in 2019. When Randy Popes drove it. That car, based on what they call production specs at Pikes Peak, is actually on E90 ethanol and actually American racing headers with straight exhaust. So, and then production cars are allowed any engine calibration within the factory computer. So 797, sure. So this car is probably making north of 900, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Now, what class are you running it?
We're running an exhibition, but we're going for the TA2 or the Time Attack 2 record, which is the production specification record attempt class. But since they don't get enough TA2 attempts anymore, that they just kind of bundle it into exhibition, which is fine.
Okay, so when you decided to run Pikes Peak for the first time, how many years ago was that?
And that was in 2016.
2016.
Yes, 2016.
Okay. Was this an event that, as a driver, and that you've always wanted to run, or was this one of those things that you were like literally sitting down, I don't know, 20 years ago, watching the wild world of sports and being like, wow, look at those cars running up and it's half dirt and half that. Like, I want to do that. Like, what gave you the bug to run Pikes?
Well, I mean, it's always been something that I wanted to do, but ultimately I like tarmac rallies. That's my favorite sport, right? If I had one sport that I could run essentially the 10 weekends a year that I go to the track somewhere, it would be tarmac rally. Unfortunately, in the US, tarmac rallying just isn't that popular. So hill climbs are kind of the next best thing. So obviously, now that Pikes is paved all the way to the top, that's kind of the ultimate tarmac rally stage in the United States. So that was kind of always what I wanted to do. But really, I mean, in 2016, Pikes was more of a whim. It was what was available when I asked for a car from Dodge. And I just put it together and went.
And what car did you run in 2016?
We ran a ACR Viper.
So never ran the mountain before in competition. Took one of the what a lot of people consider to be one of the most unruly cars to drive, which was the ACR back then. Which I think is a very false statement. I've driven those cars. I don't think they're unruly at all. I think you just have to know how to drive.
Yes,
right.
Yes, they're a pleasure to drive.
Yeah, I think you just have to know how to drive. I think most of the people that have stacked them just have no experience behind the wheel. But so you have the event, you've got the car. How do you plan for an event like that in regards to, like, this is my first time, right? So there's a couple of people that are running it now, and they've got all these videos that are out there, and they're in simulators and all this stuff. And in knowing you, I know you're more of a kind of not, I don't want to say a seat of the pants driver, but drive on with eyeballs and just kind of feel, as opposed to, well, I need to watch every single video and do all that. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah. I mean, I get bored watching the videos, but I mean, I'll watch them. Back in 2016, I actually did I mean, at that time, there was basically one guy that had a simulator out in Oregon.
Yeah.
So I went out there and literally spent a half a day on the simulator, but that was it. I mean, I basically showed up to, the first practice day, and at Pikes, they have practice 2 weekends before the race. So you can get a couple weekends before. So in 16, I did that. And, there was some muscle memory from running the simulator. But again, it's, it's seat of the pants. I mean, the majority of the course you can drive by sight. There are a handful of corners that literally can kill you that you just need to know, hey, I need to slow down for this because this is the one that doesn't have a guardrail and has a 3,000 foot drop off on the other side.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
but I mean, and I don't want to say it's simple, right? I mean, I've been off at Pikes. I mean, I went off in Cog Cut in 2019, which is, a couple corners before the finish. And it happens. I mean, I didn't barrel roll down the mountain, but I mean, you can go off if you do something stupid. But really it's not about driving, 11 tenths. It's about driving 9.5 tenths, just like really any other motorsport. I mean, you have to keep it on the asphalt. Just because there's a drop off on the other side of the asphalt doesn't mean you should find the drop off. So as long as you're keeping it on the asphalt, it shouldn't be a problem.
So the course is 156 turns. How many of those, I know you identify the corners that will kill you. And just so everybody knows, you can go online and type in 5 corners at Pikes Peak that'll kill you. And Kevin made a great video of it. But out of those 156 corners, how many do you actually memorize, or do you not?
I mean,
because it's not like going to Sonoma where there's 12 turns and you're I've got this down.
You have to remember, there's not a track in America that I can tell you all of the corner numbers at. That's just not the kind of driver I am. I mean, I literally, if somebody says, well, this, corner number 10 at Gingerman, which is the closest track to me, I literally have to think about it. Okay, yeah, okay, I know which one you're talking about. But that's not the type of driver I am. I'm a very bad student of racing.
Okay.
Because I literally drive everything by sight. And that's how I got started, right? I mean, you've run one lap. I mean, I got started racing. Literally the first time I was ever on track was during a 1-lap event at a track I had never been to. And then you throw in, running all of the tracks, and probably 6 of the 10 that we used to run, I had never been to. And you're supposed to go as fast as possible. You have to learn quickly. And that's how I learned, because I ran 1 lap for 8 years before I really started dedicated road racing. So that's all I knew.
Right. Okay. So, and 1 lap is that event when we're talking about the 1 lap of America, where it's you literally show up to a track, you get 5 laps, one recon, 3 hot laps, and a cool down. And after that recon, you better have a good idea of where you're going, or shit can go south pretty quickly.
I mean, it's kind of like, I love the autocrossers, right? Autocrossers go out and they walk the course. I never walk an autocross course. I just go.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll find my way around. And and people will tell me, and probably rightfully so, you can get a very little bit more, but that's probably true. But again, I'm not racing for a whole bunch of money, so I'm not going to put forth that extra last effort. I'll be fast enough. Typically I'm going to finish in the top, couple. So yeah, I mean, I can get by doing it the way I'm doing it. I mean, if I was getting paid to drive and I was this is what I had to do for my job, obviously it would be a completely different scenario. But I mean, if you look at Pikes, we've done pretty good. So I mean, in 2016, I showed up, never been there, in a car that really shouldn't be racing there because it's normally aspirated, and we set the TA2 record on qualifying. So I mean, it's kind of been working, and we finished second because we had some car problems. But I mean, knock on wood, we've finished every single time we went to Pikes. In 2020, we finished 11th overall in third in class in in the Challenger, which weighed with 4,500 pounds with me in it. So I mean, we do fairly well.
So there's a question, right? You've got people that are just wait, right? They're showing up in super modified cars. It's basically some plumbing equipment with a big motor attached to it and some slicks on it, and they're railing up the hill. You just said no. the Challenger, the Charger, 4,500 pounds, ton of horsepower. And you and I both know how capable they are. But when you first showed up and started running those cars, were people like, why are you running these things? They're just big.
I mean, absolutely. And they still say the same thing. There's better cars. And it's like, I'm sure there is better cars, but in 2020 was kind of the best example is, I'm sitting 10th overall, and Dai Yoshihara is the last one in my class to run on race day, and he's running in a 2,800 pound GT86, making the same power as what I make,
right?
And he beats us by like 10 or 12 seconds. And it's like, okay, well, I get it. I mean, I can go back and find the 12 seconds. I know exactly where we got beat.
Right.
Typically for us, unfortunately, it's been car issues, like niggling car issues. But
right,
I'm not going to go out and invest in a $250,000 car program just so I can go a couple tenths, a couple seconds faster. I mean, our cars that we've taken are capable of running under 10 minutes.
Right.
For us, and again, I don't want to make a bunch of excuses, but we are still Pikes rookies, right? I mean, I've been there five times now. I mean, you're racing against people have been there 20 times.
Yeah.
So there's a learning curve, and we learned a lot in 16. We learned a lot in 18. We learned a lot in 19. We applied a lot of it in 20. So now, 5th year, we're going to apply some more.
So that's an interesting point. So the evolutionary process of just the experience and stuff, how much of your program has changed in those 5 or 6 years that you've been running Pikes? Meaning from when you look back now at 2016 at your first campaign at Pikes, are you like, my God, I can't believe we did that? Or were you relatively dialed in for back then?
I mean, we were relatively dialed in. What we've struggled with is heating issues and overheating. I mean, that plagued us in 2016 with the Viper. In 2018, we had a random transmission problem, which never happens in the cars. Right. In 2019, it rained. I can't really do anything for that. And then in 2020, we got a good, clean run, but we finished at 250 degrees. So, I mean, the car was struggling in the last, third of the course.
Right.
So there's always something, right? I mean, we went out in 2020 in the lower section, which is the qualifying section, and we actually ran as fast as we did in qualifying on race day, which most people will be like, well, that's great, right? The car was understeering so horribly, I can count back and say I could have went 10 seconds faster just in the lower section. So again, back to this, Kevin should be a better driver. There are some things I should be better at, which again, I learned in 2020 that I need to attack the course more on practice to identify what might show up on race day. Because in practice, typically I will loaf along. I mean, I'll set a decent qualifying time. I want to be in a good spot, but I will not drive anywhere close to 9.5 tenths on qualifying because I don't like working on the car. I don't like I don't want to go wreck something and basically have to work on the car all night. So So I need to push a little bit more, on the practice days, on qualifying, just to be a little bit closer to what I think I'm going to be at race day. And I think that'll fix it. But again, it's a learning curve. So
well, you had mentioned that you're not being paid to do this, right? You do this. This is your hobby. This is what you enjoy doing. With that said, you're still super competitive, right? You still want to go out there, set the best time, do the best that you can. Do you, how much of that do you have to weigh and say, okay, well, I'm not being paid to do this. All this is coming out of my own pocket. Yes, I have some sponsors on the car, and that's great. But listen, this is not a cheap event to do. Anybody who thinks racing is a cheap event is out of their mind. And anybody thinks that going from Michigan to Colorado and with a truck, a trailer, a crew, and gear, this is an expensive hobby. Is that in the back of your head when you're racing, being like, take the car home, because I know when I go to the track and my stuff, I have a little note on the thing that says, it's got to get you home. It's got to get you home. And I literally have that on my dashboard.
Well, I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, if I write the car off, am I going to lose any sleep over it? Absolutely not.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. It's the nature of the, of the business.
That's right.
But you also can't finish anywhere if you don't finish. So,
right.
So I'm always trying to finish, which means you have to make it to the top. Yeah. So, but I mean, if the car's, I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, when the car hits 250, do you think I'm going to lift? No. I mean, I finished in the Viper. The Viper actually dropped 5 cylinders in the last quarter of the course. God. So, I mean, the thing was making horrible noises, but I'm still going to finish.
Right.
So, I mean, so there's always that, but you have to finish, right? You aren't going to, be in the top 25% of the field if you don't make it to the top. So
right.
Finishing is a priority.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's expensive, and yes, we do have great sponsors. Obviously Dodge supplies us with this car.
Sure.
Bill Stein is a huge supporter. Perkins Motors, which is out in Colorado Springs, is a huge supporter this year.
Yeah.
But we're down. I mean, COVID killed our race programs as far as funding goes. So, we're down significantly from where we were in the past. Are my kids still eating? Yes. But I mean, it's a break-even proposition at best.
Yeah.
And, you start throwing numbers around and people are like, oh, that's crazy. And it's like, well, my tire bill is $15,000.
Right.
Let's just leave it at that. Right. I mean,
right.
We're running a 335 Hoosier A7 this year. And on Tire Rack, they're like $770 a piece. So even though I have a discount, which is awesome, and Hoosier is helping me,
it still hurts.
You go out and buy, 5 or 6 sets of tires. I mean, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
So, I mean, it adds up pretty quick. I mean, just like the wrap. I mean, again,
wrap is $6-7 grand. I mean, and that's the interesting thing. I think that the majority of the people out there, if they've never had any experience with racing, and they might have that one car in the garage, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's an old muscle car or a Porsche or a Ferrari, it makes no difference, right? Racing is a whole nother ballgame, and the consumables in racing are exponentially more expensive than anybody, I think, believes, right? So when you talk about brake rotors, brake pads, tires, suspension components, interior components, they add up extremely, extremely quickly. And you have guys that, like, I always tell people, guys, like, well, you go to the track every now and then. How much is it? I'm like, an average HPDE day at a racetrack is $1,000. When you add in going to the track, consumables, food, track time, entry, all that stuff, at the end of the day, you're $800 to $1,000 in.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably even low, honestly.
It is, and that's the thing. I'm trying not to scare everybody away from going to the track, right? And it's like the car is the vehicle that you take to get to the track, and you obviously want to bring it home. But if that's your priority and that's what you like to do, then it's worth every penny, right? Because, like, I know when I go to the track, that's my happy place. Like, I'm happier at the track than I am any place else. Put me in a chair, watching cars go by, give me 5 or 6 sessions, over the course of a couple of days, and I'm just thrilled. That's where I want to be. And then everything else kind of disappears. So I think the money invested is really not that important as the in comparison to the amount of joy that it gives you, right?
Yeah, and I mean, this year, probably one thing I've learned is, we've dialed back the number of people we take. I mean, I can remember in 2019, I think there was probably 20 people floating around between everybody that was there for both cars. But I mean, even now where we'll have, 3 guys helping primarily, Parker will be doing some video stuff. My wife will be there, and my daughter organizing crap. It's still 2 houses for a week in Colorado. So, and we'll drive out. I mean, you just start adding all this stuff up. And, I used to tell people, it's like, when we had a lot of people out there, it was $1,000 a day food bill. And people look
easy.
Crazy. And it's like, hold on, do the math. I mean,
do the math.
Yes. I mean,
we got 20 people.
Right. 3 meals a day, $50.
Right.
I mean, all of a sudden it's $1,000. It's like, so it adds up quickly.
People don't understand that. We talk about that when we do stuff like video production and things of that nature. And you're like, I got a crew of 5 people, right? So that means every night I've got 5 different hotel rooms every day, right? I got 25 meals that I have to buy. And you know what? Somebody's going to want a snack during the day. So you got to stop and buy that, right? And then you've got fuel, you've got this, you've got that. And it adds up. And people they just don't think that way. They think in a very singular mentality, like one car, one driver, and that's the only thing. It's like, what are you, crazy? Like you're not even scratching the surface.
Well, racing really, when we're kind of a hybrid, right? Because this isn't my full-time job.
Right.
This isn't even our shop's full-time job, which the shop is, Kevin's glorified hobby, essentially. And, when you kind of live in that hybrid world, people still think, oh, your buddies are just along to help out on the weekend. And it's just like, no. I mean, there's a couple guys like my dad and one of my other buddies that will go and not get paid. It's like the other guys that's their job. They're there. They're getting paid when we're there. And rightfully so, because they're very good at their jobs and they should be getting paid because it's their job. If we were in Colorado and that's where I live, it'd be a completely different scenario, but we don't, right? I mean, we're coming from the flatlands, we're coming from Michigan, and it's a trek, and it's expensive to get it out here, but it is what it is. And, it's kind of like, they just Junior and Brock used to describe one lap as an entire season in a week. And that's kind of what Pikes is. So, I mean, it's, 4 days of testing and 1 day of racing. And I mean, it's a lot condensed into a week. So, and where else are you going to see it? I mean, where else can you race on a road like that? And pretty much nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be my first experience at Pikes, and I'm very much looking forward to it. 15, 18 years ago when I was back on the East Coast in Brooklyn and Queens, I never thought that I would have opportunities to do this. And the West Coast and just what I do for a living has opened up all these massive things. So they're true bucket list items, right? And so I was talking with my buddy Chris and a couple of other people, and they all warned me. They said, Mike, the biggest issue that you're going to have when you go to Pikes is you're going to want to do it. And they said, just get prepared for that. It's like the first time you go to a racetrack, just on like a regular track day, and then you have your first day, and then you go, oh shit, this is gonna hurt. Yeah. Because in your head, you're already adding up the expenses of, all right, now I gotta buy a car, and then I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and and it snowballs. And I'm fully prepared for that. Because
and you absolutely can do it on a shoestring budget if that's what you want, but you need to be able to go. And I struggle with just showing up to run, right? Like we could just show up to run, and whatever happens. And I mean, hell, I could have my wife crew for me and be done with it, but that's just not how we roll. So we're not going to do that.
Well, you've also turned it into a very, kind of a family affair, which I think is brilliant, right? I mean, your brother, your kids, everybody is involved in this thing. Right. And I think it's an amazing thing where, and it's interesting. I'm curious to know how the kids kind of talk about that to their friends. Like, right? Because like, think of it like this way. And I always found this interesting. Whenever I used to go to parties, I would go to like parties with my wife and stuff like that. And you would say, well, what did you do this weekend? And guys would be like, well, I was around the barbecue, and I took my kids to soccer practice, and I did this and I did that. And they're like, well, what did you do? And I always keep my mouth shut because I was like, I don't want to be like, I was racing a Porsche around Sonoma Raceway at 140 miles an hour. And it was like, do they think that my dad is the cool dad? And granted, your kids they're a little older, but I mean, did they think like that? They're like, all right, my dad's pretty cool. Or they just like, no, my dad's just still my dad.
No, I think they think like that because, my daughter just graduated high school, and against my better judgment, I let her have a party. The after party for prom was at our house. So, I sat there, and all the kids are downstairs in the basement. And, there's a handful of them that came up and talked to me about it. And, that's interesting, right? I mean, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool.
So, my daughter's talking about it, and I know the kids that, she went to school with and follow it. And I mean, my middle son is actually down here in Florida where I am today. And he was riding on a golf cart from the parking lot He works at Disney. He's in the college program. And the guy that was giving him a ride, he started talking about it, and he knew who we were and followed us on Instagram. So
that's so great.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for them. So
that's very, very cool. Well, the race is June 26th. So you've got basically 2 weeks, right? A little less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Are you guys, like you said, the car is going into rep right now. Has it been tuned? Is it sorted out? Is everything ready to rock and roll for the most part?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we literally, the car we ran it in 2019, 2020, courtesy of the Peugeot merger, all the assets that we had at our shop, which included the Charger, that were Dodges, got called home. So literally the cars sat in storage. I think we pulled it out in April, literally brought it back to the shop, put a battery in it and fired it up. We did some stuff that we wanted to, as far as some development stuff that we've learned over the last couple of years. Put a new set of tires on it, and actually didn't put a new set of tires on it, ran some old tires, took it to the track last week, and shook it down, and it was fine. And then we promptly put a brand new set of A7s on it, and I made it 3 laps. And we learned what grip was, because I hung the driver's side tire off into the gravel, and it spun, and it actually dead hooked when it hit the asphalt.
Ooh.
It spun about 30 degrees on the rim and snapped the axle. So yeah, but I mean, it was great. We learned, right? So I know not to hang a tire off now. So
right. Well, all right. So you're almost ready. You're pretty close to.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're ready. We're as ready as we're gonna be.
Okay.
And back to why do we run what we run? We run Dodge because I can do things like that, right? I don't have to spend 6 months prepping a car. I can literally drag this car out of storage and take it to Pikes Peak and beat the living hell out of it and put it back into storage when we get back. And next time we want to take it out, we'll take it out.
Yeah, that's, I think a lot of people don't understand that about these cars. A lot of people just will say, well, it's an old platform and all that bullshit. I've got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of miles running these cars. They don't break. They're relatively bomb-proof, and the amount of abuse that I've personally given them is pretty impressive. Like, and the nice part is you just don't worry. You're like, car will be fine. Like, you're gonna make it, the car will be fine. Don't worry about it. Just get it and go. Right. So I think we
try to cover all the little stuff, right? Like, you do the normal service items, but I mean, the amount of miles and the amount of abuse we put on the blue Challenger at Pikes and time attack and road racing it and everything else was just unbelievable. And it just kept taking it, everything we would throw at it. So there's no reason why this car shouldn't take the same abuse.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. So for somebody that's just looking to get into Pikes, and after the event is done, I want to have you back on to do kind of a Pikes Peak post show, to go over how the event went. What advice would you give for somebody that might be listening to this, that is thinking about doing Pikes Peak? Where do they start? What is their first step?
I mean, their first step is finding a car that's capable of going. I mean, you can take it and really decide how fast you want to go, right? I mean, you can take a normally aspirated car to Pikes and make it up. Are you going to be competitive? 99% chance you're not. Is that
elevation? Is that because of the elevation?
Just elevation. I mean, it starts at 9,000 feet and finishes over 14,000. So it just doesn't make any power. So I mean, that was the downfall of the Viper. I mean, the Viper. I mean, if you would have taken an ACR Viper, like I used to say, and just put twin turbos on it, even if you're blowing 5 pounds of boost, so you get sea level power, the thing would be like unstoppable. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of where you're at. I mean, there are, plenty of what you would call gentleman racers that run Pikes Peak, and they have a hell of a good time. So it's not that you have to have the fastest car to run Pikes Peak.
Right.
You just have to make the commitment to go. I mean, because it is such an investment of time, and it is a significant investment of money. If you're not local to Colorado. I mean, if you're local to Colorado Springs, anybody that's wanted to run Pikes Peak probably has, right? Because it's just like another track day. But you have to take a week off work. I mean, if you're if I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of time and a lot of money. But anybody can run it. I mean, it's not. You shouldn't be scared of it. Let's say that.
Okay.
Because your brain is going to tell you not to do something stupid. Now, you've seen some dramatic things at Pikes, and I'm going to tell you the most dramatic thing that I've seen at Pikes over the past is, the Evo going off the cliff.
Everybody saw that one. Yeah.
Everybody saw it. And that was just dumb. That was 1000% driver error, and it should have never happened. End of subject. So it is what it is. Now, if you're a flatlander, you need to have oxygen in your car when you run at Pikes. I mean, I've had hypoxia. I've been at the top when I haven't been on my oxygen, and it's not fun. So yeah, I mean, make sure you keep yourself healthy. Just don't try to be like, oh, I'm too good for that, or I can tough it out, because that's not how it works.
No drinking before the race.
No. I mean, whatever. I mean, you can, whatever you want, but I mean, if you've got a brain in your head, you're not going to. So.
Right. Okay. Now I guess, because we're getting in the end, what sponsors do you have on board this year? And that's another thing. How important are sponsors to this if you can obtain them?
Sponsors are everything. I mean, and what I tell people is parts are great, but parts don't pay entry fees. Parts are great, but parts don't pay for consumables. So number one, get sponsors if you can for consumables, first and foremost. Number two, get somebody to pay your entry fee, because that's a chunk of money. What is it? A couple $1,000 bucks. So, and maybe even $3,000 bucks. I can't remember, but I mean, it adds, right? Sure. So, sponsors are hugely important. If you're going to take it on without, okay, but just be prepared to, even if you're local, the event's going to cost you 15 grand without even thinking twice about it. So, you just have to be prepared for big numbers. And if you do prepare yourself for big numbers, then okay. But yeah, I mean, we're, obviously Dodge, is a key partner, always, and has been since 2016. They supplied the car, which we built for them back in 2019. Bill Stein obviously has been a longtime partner since 2018. They're back on board, and they supply most of the funding. But the other part of the funding came from Perkins Motors, which is a local Colorado Dodge dealer. Which
they've been running haven't they been running? Because I don't know if people realize this. Pikes has been around since, God, I want to say 1916 or 1920, something like that.
This year is the 100th running of Pikes, and I'm sure. Wow. And again, I should probably know, but I think it took some time off in World War II or World War I or whatever.
Right, because of that, sure. Makes sense.
So it's the 100th running, and Perkins has been around since. I think the family dealership's been around since like the 20s or 30s. So
I need to talk to them, man. I want to get them on to talk about their history with this.
Yeah, I know they've been on cars at least since the 50s. Wow. And they're a Dodge. Well, back then they were a Dodge Chrysler Plymouth dealer. So, they were on a lot of different stuff in all Mopars. So, I mean, they're a great partner for us. I mean, great family dealership. Yeah. I think it's third or fourth generation now, probably fourth generation. But yeah, I mean, they're a power broker in Colorado Springs. So obviously, with our Dodge relationship, direct connection and power brokers is a key component of that. And you'll see that on the cars, as part of the wrap. But yeah, I mean, it's great to get a local dealer involved that we've worked with, since 2016. I mean, I remember when we went out there in 2016, there was a car show the weekend before Pikes Peak at the dealer, and we took the Viper down to the dealership, and we're at the car show, and we've kind of been friends with them ever since. So it's great to see them kind of step up as part of the participation. But they have a huge activation at FanFest and with Bill Stein and Dodge. So we'll be down there on that Friday before Pikes, and the car will be on display, and you get to check out a bunch of other new stuff that they have. So
that's rad.
Yeah,
that's rad.
And it's just great. I love the history with them because they are local and talking, and talking to them the stories that they have about, people that have been to Pikes and the cars that they've sponsored and helped, and the manufacturers that have been testing there that have left in the dealership over the years. It's pretty entertaining. So
you had mentioned Fan Fest. Is Fan Fest, does that take place the day before the race?
It takes place the Friday before the race. So Friday, race is always the last Sunday of June. Well, thanks to COVID, it wasn't in 2020, but typically it's always the last Sunday of June. And so the Friday night before is Fan Fest, which is downtown Colorado Springs. They close off the main drag in downtown. A lot of the cars come out. All the top 15 qualifiers have to be there. Lots of fan participation. They'll get 40,000 fans to come downtown. So yeah, it's a couple days before. It gives us time on Saturday to recoup a little bit, and they'll get the pits and everything set up on the mountain on Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening for the race on Sunday.
That's right. Well, I am very much looking forward to going this year. I think it's cool. I can't wait to meet up with you guys, check out the car, take a bunch of photos and kind of relay. But like I said, I would love to have you back on after the event, just to give everybody the kind of like the download of how it went and the competition.
Hopefully it's a good download. So
it'll be a great download. I don't have any doubt. I have no doubt. I think it's gonna be amazing.
It should be good. It'll be a good event. Obviously the card's been before. It's made it to the top once. We'll try to make it to the top again and see what we can do. Now, we thought we'd be going after the Bentley record in TA2, which we still are. That's kind of the bogey. But I know David Donner is bringing a Porsche, some GT2, blah, 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 whatever nomenclature it is. And then there's going to be, I know there's a GT500 that's entered in TA2. So we're going to have some competition. So we'll see how it goes. But, our kicker for us is power, right? It weighs, but I tell everybody it's a drag race between the corners, especially when you get up in the thin elevation, is that it's just A to B drag racing. And as soon as you can get off the corner, when you can put the power down, it's whoever gets to the next corner first has the upper hand. So that's what we try to do.
Perfect. Well, Kevin, where can everybody find you? So if they want to follow along, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, what addresses can they find you at?
So everything on Instagram and Facebook is at Wesley Motorsport, no S. And then Facebook, internet, YouTube, all that stuff, I think is all the same. And then our website is wesleymotorsports.com. Obviously, there's all the links back to social on there, but just search Wesley Motorsport on Instagram or Facebook and you'll find us. Okay.
And with that said, in the description, when we put it up on Hemmings.com, you can go and we'll list all those social sites as well. So you can go to Hemmings.com, look for the article that'll go up, the recap of the show will go up Tuesday morning at 4:15 a.m. and you'll have all the links on there.
And if you get to YouTube, all of our runs from the previous years are there. Actually, yeah, 2016 is out there on. If you go to Pikes Peak's YouTube, that's there. It's also on Hot Rod because Hot Rod covered us in 2016, and then 2018, it's out on Pikes Peak feed. They always confiscate everybody's cards and upload everybody's runs. 2019, we have the big rehash documentary on Gears and Gasoline. Which is good to watch.
So Gears and that is an amazing piece of video to watch for anybody out there. Gears and Gasoline, that's where they can find that piece.
Yeah, Gears and Gasoline. Yep.
Okay. That's a great documentary that follows Kevin and I believe Randy Popes as well.
Yes.
But it really gives some great insight into what they went through to get to Pikes, how the cars behaved, just kind of, your interviews and Randy's interviews and everything. It's just a spectacular piece and it's beautifully shot and beautifully edited.
They do a great job and they did a great job. It really, even what they did, it was amazing. It was supposed to be, we're going to do like a 15-minute video and it ends up being like 50 some minutes. They're like, they just got so much good footage. It was
but it's a great watch. It's not like you're 10 minutes in, you're like, wow, I'm kind of getting bored. You will watch it from start to finish and you'll be like, where's the other 57 minutes?
Yeah.
Like it's a really engaging piece. So I will post that link. I encourage everybody to watch it. With that said, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for taking the time to talk about Pikes.
Always.
And I will see you in a couple of weeks, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, sounds good.
So, and with that, everybody, this is another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ. And if you're thinking about running Pikes or any other event, just remember, Hemmings has a massive classified section with 25,000 cars at any given time and a kick-ass auction. If you want to buy something, if you want to sell something, check it out at hemmings.com. And that's it. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.